Alrighty, welcome to an episode of the OSR series. Today, we're going to start with. Actually, I'm probably going to rename this video. This is going to be let's build a basic fantasy RPG adventure. As you can see on the screen, I have chosen to build ourselves a BFRPG game. Of course, the game is by Chris Gonerman. I will be using the 3rd edition, which is what I've used. I've seen the 4th edition, haven't used it much yet. To my understanding, there ain't much difference anyway. I've got the 3rd edition book. I'll just keep using the 3rd edition book. So, with that being said, we have ourselves, as you can see, pretty, basic adventure. You know, you got, it's for player character levels 1 through 3, like the old modules of old, right? And we've got ourselves a very short setting just to kind of set things up. I'll probably rename this in a little while. But you have the Church of Corrid has long housed the dearly departed of important figureheads in the village's history, from the founder Garland Corrid to the father of the current mayor Justin Ledrick. The Church of Corrid goes through great pains to make sure each and every burial is proper. Pardon me. However, the same cannot be said of the departed of the lay people. Because of this, the catacombs of the common folk of Corrid have a more sinister legacy. Now, some people have wondered about naming conventions. You know, how do guys just come up with naming on the fly? Well, you know, like everybody else, struggle with this as well. But I do have some tips that have helped me. Maybe that'll help you. Try to keep your names as simple as possible. In terms of English, speaking English, names that are 2 to 3 syllables work the best. They sound more believable. They sound more fluid. English is very much a language of practicality when it comes to naming conventions. So there you go. Just as a little tip. The crypts of Corrid lie underneath the church, but the catacombs are situated on the edge of town within the city walls. Many people, especially those living in proximity to the catacombs, whisper about the dead walking underneath the town during the night. Many people have chosen not to bury their dead in the catacombs, but instead take them outside of town and throw them in the Dreg Marsh, which is a future idea. So, this has started a rift between the common people of Corrid and the church, but for the time being, the catacombs remain unused and shunned. Some have even gone so far as to suggest that the sounds in the night are the dead expanding. I see a typo there. The tunnels underneath the village. So, we've also introduced a sort of conflict between the lay folk of Corrid and the church. So, maybe it's a rift that could be repaired, or it could be deepened. I guess that depends on how the players want to play this. But there you go. Here's a little bit of a small political conflict, cultural conflict, religious conflict, and the idea of the Dreg Marsh, which is something I'm going to work on in the future. So, I will, of course, expand that setup for the time being. It works as a placeholder. So, of course, game master information, and of course I included a classic little, if you're a player in this adventure, stop. This will contain spoilers and is meant for the game master's eyes only. This adventure is meant to be a crawl through an underground labyrinth of undead. Treasures await the players and great danger can be found within. This will test the mapping skills of the players and hopefully intrigue them if they choose to adventure both day and night. As you as the referee will need to have a basic grasp of timekeeping, just in case nightfall and daybreak find the players still in the catacombs. Now, I'm going to try to include some things to entice the players to try to come back during the nighttime instead of just trying to uh, voyage during the daytime, because the daytime hours is the most safest, whereas the nighttime is much more, as you'll see from just the Wandering Encounter table, nighttime will be more harrowing. So, I have elected to use from Section 8 the Wandering Encounter tables from page 144 of the 3rd edition. I'm not sure what page number that would be in the 4th, but there you go, just as a little setup. Of course, I've included green slime with an HP of 7. The numbers in parentheses are, of course, the number appearing for the Wandering Encounter table. A cobra will be a 1 in D6. You see the HP there. A giant rat and a giant fly. Both of these will be more common to run into. Of course, you have giant crab spider, which will feast off of the insects and other vermin within, and the chance for an NPC adventurer party. And I do not have them drawn up yet. In my next video, I will draw them up, and we'll go over them. And that's the Daytime Wandering Encounter sheet for level 1, which I should make a note of, because I do plan on having more than just one layer to this. Forgive me, I'm not a typist. I never did learn to type, so I peck. But of course, you can kind of see what I mean with the nighttime Wandering Encounter. Now, because I wanted to include undead, and the only level 1 undead listed on the table on page 144 of the 3rd edition of BFRPG is a skeleton. So what do? Well, I took a zombie, and we're going to reduce that number by half, because it's a level 2 monster. You can still use it. Just cut it in half. And we can still use skeletons on level 2 if we want to, but we'll have to double the amount that might appear. Will be much more dangerous. And same with the giant Black Widow spider. Now, it's 1 in D3 on the encounter list. So, but that's for level 2. So I just bumped it down to 1. Just took it down a peg. It's still very dangerous. As you can see from the HP, it's killable, but it's still a very dangerous monster. They might not want to fight this thing. It'll appear at night. The cobra will still appear at both times of the day. Giant rats, I had to make a decision. I will say that giant rats go to burrow. You'll still run into normal rats, and I'll probably put giant rats in a lair, but not as a wandering monster during the daytime. And replaced a few monsters. So we brought out the skeleton. I wanted the skeletons to be the more common, since, during the nighttime, supposedly they hear movement underneath the village. Then you have the giant bat. The giant bat doesn't appear again on the level 1 encounter list, so I halved it. Instead of being 1d10, I halved it down to 1d5. So roll a d5, divide a half, 1 to 2 is 1, 2 to 3 is a 2, etc. 1 to 2 is a 1, 3 to 4, 3 to 4 is a 2, 4 to 5 is a 3, and so on and so on. So, do a little basic math, you could probably figure it out. And then, of course, zombies, which are 2d4 on a level 2, but I wanted them on a level 1, so I halved it. So I just took away a die. So, of course, I have the adventuring party. I haven't drawn them up yet. So for the next video, we are going to build an adventuring party. Now, my biggest tips for if you wish to build adventures like this, simply start with something that is going to, this is mostly just filler. This is mostly for me to get in a creative mindset. I don't need anything that I wrote up here, but it helps me to establish some things because I want a feel. And this is mostly just for filler too, just to establish a creative, it helps gives my creative juices flowing, so do anything that helps you get your creative juices flowing. Doesn't matter what edition, doesn't matter what system. If you're somebody who runs games, whether that's OD&D, 5th edition, basic, expert, advanced, whatever, Call of Cthulhu, just put some stuff down that, just write stuff down that helps get your creative juices flowing. You don't need any, like I said, you don't need any of this, but I do it anyway. Why? Because it helps me get a feel, puts me in a mindset. As for the wandering encounter table, this will help establish a feel for how I want the first level of the dungeon to be. This is of course going to be underground, going to be very labyrinthian. I'm eventually going to connect it with certain parts of the crypts underneath the church. Now there is a difference between the crypt and a catacomb. A catacomb is more meant for common people, but it does have some religious practices, which is why once people started throwing their dead in the drag marsh, that's why this rift started occurring, because while the church has not really been paying much attention to the common burial grounds of the catacombs. So, whereas the crypt is directly underneath the church. That's the difference between a catacomb and a crypt, by the way. Is a crypt, is meant for religious purposes and is underground. It's mostly meant for the common people, whereas a crypt is directly connected underneath a church, in case you were wondering. With that being said, thank you guys for watching this. Hope this helps you out. Please join me next time whenever I add on to this. As always, take care, God bless, and I'll see you on the other side.